I'm Susanna, and usually I work at Iver Environment Centre, but like you, recently I've been spending quite a lot of time at home. But that doesn't mean we can't have fun in nature. So maybe you've got a garden, or you're going for a walk each day, and in that time I thought we could talk about making our own collections. So it's probably best if you don't go picking your parents' flowers or surprising them with live animals in tins. But there are plenty of other things, just in your own little garden or in a park nearby, that you can pick up and collect and make into a scientific collection. So if you look here, these are just a few little things that I have found in my garden, and I've put them into a mint tin, which is nice and safe. I've labelled them, worked out what they all are. So, it's always been very important for people to know what different things are. So as soon as our species could talk, they were probably starting to share information about which plants were poisonous and which plants were edible. So it's always really important for us to be able to pass on that information, which means we have to have different names for things. We have to be able to identify them. But some species look really similar. I went out for about 5 minutes this morning and searched for some snail shells. And I don't know if you can see, but these are all pretty similar. And I think, well, there's at least 3 different species there, if not more. So, how are we going to tell the difference? Well, lots of people have got there before us, and they've written stuff down about it, and they've shared it, and they've used special names, which are called scientific names, which we can share information around the world with. So that's really helpful. So I've been on the internet and I've had a look, and I think I've recognised 3 of these different species, but maybe, I'm still not sure about some of them because they're really hard. So what I want you to do is go and see if you can find some different species that you don't know how to tell the difference between, and look them up on the internet and see what information you find out. So, in order to work out what species something is, we first need to look at what kind of group it's in. So you start out with the really big groups, like is it a plant or is it an animal? And then you get down to smaller things. Is it a snail or is it a slug? Things like that. So back in the 4th century BC, a man called Aristotle he wrote a book that started sort of grouping things into different groups. And we still use some of those groups today. But then in the 18th century, someone called Linnaeus came along and made the system much simpler because a lot of names were really complicated and difficult for people to understand. So he came up with this system where everything has 2 names, and they are the genus and the species. And so that is called binomial nomenclature, which is a fancy way of saying 2 names. So with some of these species that I've found, I tried to look at what those 2 names might be. Now, I found a guide online identifying snails. Now, one really important thing is that I looked at snails in the UK, because our snails are a bit different to the ones in America, a bit different to the ones in Africa, so I had to make sure I was looking at the ones in the UK. Now this one shell that I've got looks very see-through, translucent. And I thought, well, I've heard of something called a glass snail, maybe it's that. So I looked it up, and I found out that glass snail isn't a species, it isn't a genus, it's a family, it's an even bigger group. So that one's going to be quite hard. But I think from this guide that I found online that it's called Aegipinella nichijula. Now all these names are in Latin, so I'll give you a hint here. The best way to deal with a Latin name is say it loudly and confidently. Everyone will believe you know what you're talking about. It doesn't really matter how we pronounce it, mostly matters that we spell it right, because then other scientists can read it and they can know what we're talking about. So, this is my garden. It's not very big, but it's big enough to find lots of interesting things in, as you saw with my little collection. And you don't have to be inside to be able to look things up on the internet. There's a really cool app called iNaturalist that you can take photos and put them online and get things identified. So earlier today I took a picture of a caterpillar I found. I didn't know what it was, and someone has identified it as in a genus called Noctua. It's really quite pretty, so that's cool. And I've been taking some pictures of the plants I don't know in my garden, and it seems really good so far. And it identified my snail shell as Sapea, like I thought it was. So that's great. So if you have a garden, you can get looking. What you want to do is have a little look underneath these. Wow. There's lots of woodlice under there. And I'm not suggesting to collect them or any flowers or anything, but maybe you might want to collect a seed or something like a rose hip or a leaf. And if you're collecting a leaf and you want to know what it is and take a picture on iNaturalist, I would suggest taking a picture of the whole plant. So make sure you get leaves and flowers in the frame so that it's easier for them to identify it. Okay, so I'm just going to go and have a look. So just a quick look around the garden, and I've found some snail shells and a cone, a pine cone. Don't know if you can see that, but woo, that was a dandelion seed, and some little rodent bones as well. So you can see how quick it is, how easy it is to find things in your garden. You just have to look really carefully, see what you can find. So back inside now again. Once you've collected all your specimens, you're going to want to put them somewhere nice and safe. Somewhere where you can keep them all separated and organise them to what they are, label them so you don't forget. So here what I've done is I've got a little mint tin. You could use anything though really, any kind of tin or carton. This egg carton works quite well. And I've separated this out with a little bit of card, and then written all of the different species with their scientific names so that I don't forget. Another good thing to do here is to put the location where you are. So you might put, if it were me, my garden, Reading. And yeah, so you put that information so that anyone coming and looking at your collection at a later date will know where it came from. So, unfortunately with this feather, I don't know what bird that came from, and I don't know how to find out, so I've just put feather. Still pretty cool though. Okay, so we have a look at this egg box. Makes a pretty good container as well. see that. Got some little leaf skeletons here. And some bits of bark. And again, put the species name and labels there. So now we've come to the most important part. Once you've made your collection, found out some interesting facts about the species you've found, labelled it, and learnt all these interesting things, we can close it up and save it until we get to show it off to all of our friends. That might not be very soon. But if you really can't wait, maybe you can do it over video call. Anyway, I hope you had a lot of fun. I did, and see you next time.